All right, hey, I'm Will. This is Cardboard Minute, and today we are going to have a quick talk about what kind of games would we play with the relatives. I know Thanksgiving is coming up. We here, however, are Canadians, so we've already had our Thanksgiving. I don't know if you guys managed to go home to visit your families at all. Mm-hmm. I spent a little time, and since we're a little bit getting out of the pandemic now, it's a little easier to see our relatives. And we've already celebrated, and now our gift to our American friends is a little guide on what kind of games you should bring home, some recommendations, and some thought processes on why we would recommend these games to your family. I'm sure everyone's had the problem before where they've tried to bring home one of their favorite games, but it didn't quite fit with their family. You're not going to get your grandmother to play Terraforming Mars. But maybe you are, and that would be amazing, I'm sure. But I'm sure, my family is not into that kind of thing. So let's just quick introduce ourselves, and then we'll do a quick discussion on, why we chose certain games and the thought process behind going home from the holidays. So here we've got...
Yep, so I'm Nabil, and I chose the games that I chose because they're easy to teach. You can teach these games within 5-10 minutes easily, and the rule sets are not complicated at all, but they still have a somewhat of a level of strategy to them as well. So, if somebody who is more well versed in board games or strategy games will still enjoy them.
So you see, would that be a key then? Is things that are easy to teach?
I think so. I think games that are easy to teach are crucial when it comes to introducing new people to the hobby, and even as I get more into the hobby, I'm drawn more towards games that are easy to set up, easy to take down, easy to teach, easy to learn. Whereas before I used to play, I used to love games with 40-page rule books that I have to spend 2 hours learning.
I've got a few of those.
We've all done that. I still do that too, but I find that I'm drawn to more of the games that are easy to teach but still have some depth to them.
Would you guys agree?
Yes.
I think we pretty much all pick games that are on the easy to teach side. And not just because we're playing with people who are not used to sitting down to a rules dump, but there may not be time. There may be kids running around, you little ones, old people who don't have the attention span quite so much for a longer game, and you want something you can get to the table and have a good time.
Especially if you've got a stomach full of turkey and gravy. I don't know. My attention span kind of wanes after Thanksgiving dinner.
Yeah, maybe a little bit of alcohol too.
Yeah, exactly. Some alcohol, some pumpkin pie,
Right.
Yeah. So I'm Faran, and I agree with everything that Nabil and Will have said so far. One thing I would add is I chose some of my games based on size as well. So I think size and ease of transportation is a key, especially when you're taking stuff, hauling games. You don't want big giant boxes. Can be intimidating as well if you bring out a big giant box of maybe Dwellings of Eldervale or Gloomhaven with your family. They're just going to run away and probably never play games with you again. Unless it is some people's things, but more often than not, size is important. So I kind of chose some of my games based on ease of transportation as well.
Well, and maybe we'll be traveling distances to get home, right? You just had a similar experience.
I did.
And we will talk travel games in a different video. Yeah. But what was your experience? And
yeah, my experience. I went home and I couldn't, as many board gamers will sympathize. You can't decide which games you're going to take. So the smaller games often take precedence, and you can squeeze a lot more of them into carrying containers. You take maybe a medium-sized box and stuff a few of them in there. John actually was nice enough to lend me his Qwirkle, which is a nice card carrying case. So I took that with me, and I kind of stuffed, and I took a bunch of these games actually in front of me, and I just left the boxes at home and put them in the carrying case. Again, we'll talk about that in a future video, but that's kind of one reason why I took some of the smaller games that I did with me.
Hey, John.
Hi, John.
What was your thought process?
So, again, hitting a lot of the same points, ease of teaching, how fast it will be to get to the game, how smooth will the experience be, as well as player count is another important one for me. That's one of the reasons I chose one, because it handles tons of players versus maybe only. We always run into so many games that 4 max. It's and how well does it play at those high play counts is another key factor. So those are two factors that along with the smooth teaching, and also while still having enough of an interesting decision space so that experienced board gamers won't be bored.
Definitely, yeah. You may have a whole bunch of people at a family gathering, and something that you can play all together, or a smaller group. With COVID, there's been a lot more distancing. So yeah, that's great. I took a slightly different approach. I was looking more at games that you can relate to games that maybe people in your family have grown up with, that are not a newer take on a traditional style of game, perhaps things that you might be able to kind of fill the gaps or connect the gaps here, connect the dots between, like, hey, you've played this, like, grandma's played a lot of euchre in the past. Well, maybe she would like something like Wizard. It would be my first little pick, which I've played a lot with my parents. It looks like a standard deck of cards, except for a few extras, and it plays very much like a classical trick-taking game, but with some interesting twists on top. So this was something I was able to introduce because my parents have played trick-taking games before, and they were not turned off by the flashy looks of some of the other games that I've tried to get out before and failed at. So why don't we just go through and do a couple recommendations each, and if you have anything specific to say on why you picked those.
Sure. Yeah, maybe I'll go this way. And so I'll talk about this game that actually will introduce me to. It's called No Thanks, and I'm sure everybody on this table has played this. And it's a quick game, so you can actually bang out 5-6 games of No Thanks in the span of under an hour. So and this is the type of game that people kind of say, okay, let's play one more. And it's one of those games, once you play it once, it's so much fun, and it's easy, and it doesn't look crazy, but it's got just numbers on it, so it's not some extravagant theme that you have to kind of explain. It's just numbers, and what you're doing is you're trying to basically play a game of chicken to see how long you can hold out and try and have the smallest possible total at the end of the game by taking the smallest possible cards. You have these little marbles or beads that you kind of use to get negative points as well, so the more beads you have, the better. So you're trying to collect beads while as trying to pawn off the higher value cards to the other players at the table. So it's small, it's fun, and I highly recommend No Thanks.
That makes me think of another factor that we should consider. It would be age ranges, right? Like, because you could be playing with, like I said, not just younger kids all the way up to senior citizens together, and something like No Thanks would be. If you can count to 35, which
sorry guys.
Oh, sorry. Okay, so
Wheels up.
Well, we are not going to. We're not going to leave you out just because you can't count. But almost anyone can play that game. It's very, very simple.
All right. So I'm just going to talk about now. This is Las Vegas Boulevard, which is it's Las Vegas with the expansion Boulevard built in. Right now, the easiest way to get Las Vegas, I believe, is Las Vegas Royale. Yep. Now that handles 2 to 5 players. With this combination, I think I can handle up to 8 players, and it doesn't drag on too long in spite of the fact of having 8 players. And it's a fun, interesting decision. If you roll the dice and you've got 6 different casinos that you're trying to get the money at, and you have to have the most dice at a location, or whatever you roll, you have to take all the dice of one type and put it in that thing. And that decision of, do I put one more, I've got this one and I'm working on this one, it's worth a lot. Do I put that one, I've got this opportunity of 3 of these other ones, do I do that? And that decision is always fun and engaging, I find. And I've had lots of success with all sorts of different crowds of different experience levels, and they always seem to enjoy it. So, and it's relatively fast, so that's one of my recommendations. And the Royale one adds a whole bunch of expansions, so if you want to add more complexity, you can. Yep. And Boulevard has some stuff that honestly I mainly just use a few pieces of it.
Yeah, I agree. Las Vegas is a great game, and all you need is the base game, and you don't need all that extra stuff, and it's just fun and simple to play.
And you could probably add more players just by getting more dice.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
The card count would be a bit different, but I look online. I'm sure there's probably some modifications to rules for that.
Nice. So I chose, one of the ones that I chose was Codenames. I think everybody has heard of Codenames, even if you're not into the hobby. So I don't have to talk about that too much. It plays any number of people. Super easy to teach and to get out there, and there's always leads to some funny moments, so it's always fun. Another one that I really like is Truffle Shuffle. It's small box, very inexpensive, but it's all about collecting cards with chocolates on them and then trading them in for money. And the sets that you trade them in, so it's basic set collection, and the sets you're trying to go for are similar to hands in poker. So again, something that a lot of people are familiar with is poker and what hands make up poker hands. But it's super easy. You take a card on your turn, and then if you have a set, you can turn it in. That's the whole game. But the cards are laid out in sort of a pyramid in the same fashion as Seven Wonders Duel, if you're familiar with that game at all, where one row is face up, one row is face down. You can only take a card that's not touching any other card. There's a bit of which card do I take, which card do I not want my opponent to take.
Yeah, you want to plan it out for your opponent.
Exactly. And then there's Bezzerwizzer, which is a basic trivia game with a bit of a twist. So you can steal people's questions. You can try to guess their questions if you think they're going to get it wrong. And there's a wide range of questions too. It's not just questions that only a certain people, very specific people would know. There's a range of easy to hard questions in every category, and there's a lot of categories. And everyone knows Trivial Pursuit and is familiar with trivia games already, so it's pretty easy to get people to play.
Yeah, any party game is really a good recommendation. I've got a classic game of Balderdash, which has been around for a long time. In fact, many of these games, including Balderdash, you could probably find at a mass market retail store, at a Walmart, especially the Target stores in the States. We're a little jealous being Canadians that we don't have Target exclusives and all these big board games coming to Target now.
I like the redesign. It's quite nice, actually.
Yeah, and it's essentially a dumb trivia game, right? It's one of those games where they may say some. There's a bunch of different categories, but it may be like, here's a crazy law, or something, and you may not ride down Main Street on a Sunday, and then everyone has to write their answer down and hand it in, and then everybody votes on which is they think is the real answer, a little bit like Dixit, I guess, in a way, and then it's revealed, okay, which one is the real answer, and then if people voted for yours, you get points. And I think the answer was like a horse.
See, I was
or something, but sometimes they're weird, super weird answers
that
too.
was a legit law in Ottawa. Way back when.
Yeah, actually.
Couldn't ride a horse down, I think it was Bank Street.
Down Bank Street.
On Sundays.
On Sundays.
The one thing I like about that element of Balderdash, in terms of, there's some people that will be very competitive and they need to win, right? They really want to win. So games like that, Say Anything and whatnot, where it's not a matter of who's funniest wins, it's the matter of just, there's all sorts of ways of winning. Keeps it interesting for them, and also it still lets everyone have a great time.
Yeah, there's a point structure, but it's also hilarious, and the points are not necessary.
Exactly.
They really don't matter unless you care about it.
Yeah.
Lastly, I've got Qwirkle, which is essentially Scrabble without words. It is easy enough for children, but you do not need a vocabulary of any sort, not even in English, in order to play it. And so if you're tired of your mother-in-law whooping you at Scrabble every time you get together, then
it is the one game I can get my parents to play aside from Point Salad.
Yeah, because it is essentially Scrabble minus
the one they'll actually ask
with
for.
even easier rules, and you're not fighting over correct spellings and whether it exists in a dictionary or not.
Mm-hmm.
One thing I want to mention about Codenames was another interesting potential point would be, are there people that are going to be remoting into this event? That type of game, if you got it right set up with a couple of cameras and whatnot, they could be monitoring it and actually joining in the game as well.
Well, there is actually a official Codenames web app.
Yes.
Which I can put a link in the description, where you can all be on Zoom, be logged into this web app, and just have one person share the screen, and everyone can play through their.
They don't even, if I remember correctly, they don't even need to be Zoom. They could just be on their phone and be logged into that room, and they'll see it as well.
Yeah.
Well,
what's that game on Steam? I can't remember anyways. Never mind.
Yeah. No. That's that. You don't even need to be logged in, but half the fun is kind of the banter and Codenames. So you definitely want to be plugged in.
There has to be a Zoom. The Zoom call is going to be going on. Right?
Yeah.
So you might as well show that screen at the same time.
And also, there's lots of different themed versions of Codenames as well. So if you know your family loves The Simpsons, there's a Simpsons Codenames. There's a Marvel Codenames. There's a Codenames pictures, and you can mix and match the pictures with the words.
But that's another great way to get the engagement. Is if you want they love Marvel, you could get. Well, I've got 5-minute mystery here, but I'm talking about 5-minute dungeon. There's 5-minute Marvel, and be like, okay, Marvel. You like Marvel?
Yeah. There's also a Disney-themed Codenames if you're playing with a bunch of kids. Like,
If you're on a subscription for Disney Plus, then
yeah,
then you probably own it already.
Probably do pretty poorly on that one. Right?
Yep. So yeah, I'll quickly talk about a couple other games that I took back home. One that I really enjoyed and a lot of my friends enjoyed when I took it back is Timeline.
that's a good one.
It's a really, really good game, and you might think you might need to know the subject that it's talking about. So there's a bunch of timelines that exist. So there's the inventions one. I have the music and cinema one here. There's discoveries. There's Canadian themed one.
I have the Canadian one.
Yeah.
That one did work well with my family.
I actually got my mother the Quebec one.
Oh, okay.
There's a Quebec specific one.
There's a Quebec specific one. Yeah.
So as you can see, they're very, very narrow to some subject matters. However, that being said, it's all a guesswork because some of these events. So basically, what the game is, you have to pick an event. In the case of inventions, for example, what was invented before or after another thing that's already on the board. So it's only relative. You don't need to know the exact time. So you don't have to be a trivia junkie or kind of a high school major in inventions. You can just guess and win the game, and just by sheer luck. It's just a lot of fun, playing this game with friends and family and kind of estimating that. So I really like this one. I highly recommend it. And plus, it's a very, very small footprint. It's just a bunch of cards that you can throw into a baggie and take with you. So yeah, it's really good.
And they're tiny cards, so
They're
it's
very
even
tiny.
smaller. I can jump in with one more here. Monikers, one of my favorite party games.
Oh.
It's, this is an older edition. They've come out with a new edition since. Got it on clearance at Walmart at one point, and it's just had an absolute hoot with it. The whole concept is basically you've got 3 rounds. The first round, all these cards are different people, places, things, etc. And for the first round, you can say as much as you want to try to describe the thing. One of them is Evander Holyfield's ear, which was bitten by Mike Tyson back in the day. Anyway, so they got all sorts of different things on there. And the first round, you can literally just read the description to try to get people to guess it. And then as they see it, if it doesn't get guessed, it'll come back around. So like, okay, I heard that description before. It was. And then the next round, you get a single word to describe these things without actually using the word that's already on there. And people are like, oh, wait, yeah, no, you're probably talking about this. And then the third round, just charades and sound effects. You're not allowed to use any words. But by that time, you're so familiar with the words you've gone through that it starts going. And every once in a while, it'll be like, what the heck was that, you ask by the end?
Yeah.
And everyone has a good time. Even if you're on the losing team, you're just cheering for the other team, having fun, watching them try to guess.
Yeah.
It's inside joke the game. Like
Yeah.
you make inside jokes.
By the third round, it's an inside joke. This reminds me a lot of a game called Time's Up, which is very, very similar concept. The most popular version is Time's Up Title Recall, and it's basically movie and kind of entertainment themed. So yeah, it's very similar to that, and it's a lot of fun. Yeah.
There's always lots of expansions.
Lots of expansions.
which are probably not necessary either.
No.
But it's any one of them you can find would do, really.
Just to round up the couple of games I have in front of me here. Illusion is a great little card game, again, small footprint, going with the same theme of easy to transport. And again, it's all a game of estimation. You have card in front of you, and you have to kind of guess what percentage of it is a certain color, and you have to sort them in ascending or descending order. So again, you can teach it in a minute, and it can provide you with lots and lots of fun and laughs.
Yeah, any age. In fact, the kids may be better at it.
Kids are they're gonna smoke you at this game. Trust me, because they have a better eye for these types of things.
What do you mean that card has more blue?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's a lot of fun. This one here is another one I took home, and I actually played it with my 6-year-old. This one's called Qwirkle. It's the French version of Get Bit, which is a very popular game. And again, it's language independent, so you don't really need, you don't have to have the English or the French version. You can play with either. And it's basically, you're trying to survive the shark that you're being chased by, and it's got these cute little pieces inside that you're actually kind of like Lego-ish that you're undoing, and you're trying to be kind of the last swimmer to survive.
You mean removing the limbs, though?
They're not undoing, yes, correct. Please be careful when you're playing with your family, yes. So yeah, this is another great one. And lastly, I'll talk about Ghost Blitz, which is a quick thinking game, much in the vein of Spot It, where you're kind of trying to pick up the piece that matches the card in front of you. And again, you can teach it to a 6-year-old. You can teach it to my mother, who enjoyed it as well. So wide age range of people. And don't be deceived by the childish look. You can play with any age range, and it's a lot of fun. So yeah, those are a few of the games that I want to recommend.
One last one here, just 5-minute mystery, a new one from the 5-minute dungeon people, and it's a lot of fun. It's a lot of there's a lot of kind of speaking of like observation quickly. It's the same concept. There's a whole bunch of pictures where you got to find the symbols, find which version of the symbols is hidden in the picture, and they're hidden well often. And sometimes it's the same picture but of different versions, so you may think you know what it is, but you don't. So that's how they keep you on your toes, and you're trying to go through them as quickly as possible while also using some logic to kind of deduce quickly which element of the suspect you're trying to narrow down. So kind of like a guess who that kind of situation at the same time, a little bit, and you're under a time pressure. It doesn't actually take 5 minutes per game. It does with some of the scenarios. Some of them it goes up to 8, 9, but it's still really fast, really easy to teach, and great production values.
All right, well, thanks guys for your recommendations. If you have any more recommendations or games you've successfully taught to your relatives when you've gone home, please let us know in the comments. Hopefully we've been able to help you have some time, possibly playing games with your family. Even if they don't want to play games with you, go home and see them anyways, right? Like go
force them to play.
Yeah. But the primary reason is you're there to see family. So whether you get to play or not, don't be disappointed. Have time with your family, and then come back and play with your serious board game friends afterwards. So thanks for watching. Hopefully you enjoy the holidays, from our, us Canadians to our southern friends, or anyone for any time of the year, really. You're getting together with people who are not gamers or relatives. I hope this has helped, and play more games.